The examination room door was the only thing between us and a lawsuit I couldn't afford. "Sir, you need to wait outside," the vet tech said, blocking my path. Her name tag read Stephanie, and her arms were crossed like a nightclub bouncer. I adjusted Julian's weight on my hip. He was burning up, his small fingers digging into my shoulder. "My son has 103 fever. Your waiting room is packed with people who think kennel cough is an emergency. There's only one room left, and I need company policy, no children in exam rooms." The dog in my other arm, a massive German shepherd named Zeus, whined and tried to lick Julian's face. I pulled back. Zeus belonged to my wealthiest client, and if I lost this contract because I couldn't make a simple vet appointment work, I was done. "Please." The word came out rougher than I meant. I was running on 4 hours of sleep and gas station coffee. "I'm not leaving my sick kid alone out there." "Then you'll have to reschedule." Behind her, I could see the empty exam room. Stainless steel table. Bright lights. Salvation. Julian started crying. Not the dramatic kind, but the weak, defeated sound that meant he was too tired to fight anymore. I felt my chest tighten. I was 21 years old, and I was failing the only thing that mattered. "What's going on here?" The voice cut through the chaos like a closing argument. I turned. She stood in the doorway of the waiting room, and everything about her screamed money. Charcoal suit that probably cost more than my rent. Hair pulled back in a way that looked effortless, but definitely wasn't. She was older, maybe early 50s, and she was staring at Stephanie like she was reviewing a contract full of errors. "Ma'am, this doesn't concern you," Stephanie said. The woman ignored her and looked at me. Her eyes were sharp, evaluating. "Is your son sick?" "Fever," I said. "Started this morning. I called the pediatrician, but they're booked until Thursday, and I have this appointment." I gestured at Zeus, who chose that moment to bark. She looked at Julian, then at Zeus, then at Stephanie. "How long is the exam?" 15 minutes, Stephanie admitted. "Then let him bring the child inside." "I'll wait." "Ma'am, it's against policy." "I'm a lawyer." She pulled out a business card and handed it to Stephanie. "If there's a policy concern, have your manager call me. But right now, you're going to let this young man take care of his responsibilities." The way she said it wasn't mean. It was just final, like a judge reading a verdict. Stephanie looked at the card, then at me, then sighed. "Fine, but if the kid touches anything—" "He won't," I said quickly. "Thank you, both of you." The woman nodded once and walked back to the waiting room. I didn't even get her name. I made it through Zeus's exam by letting Julian sit on my lap and color on the back of an old receipt. Dr. Hayes, a kind woman in her 60s who'd known me since I started the dog-walking business, checked Zeus's limp and confirmed it was just a mild sprain. "Rest and anti-inflammatories," she said, handing me a prescription. "And Charles, that boy needs a doctor." "I know." "There's an urgent care 2 blocks down. They take walk-ins." I nodded, doing the math in my head. Urgent care copay. Prescription for Julian. Zeus's meds. I had maybe $200 in my account until Friday. "I'll figure it out," I said. Dr. Hayes gave me a look that said she didn't believe me, but she didn't push. That's what I liked about her. She treated me like an adult, not a kid who got his girlfriend pregnant in high school and then lost her on the delivery table. When I walked back into the waiting room, the woman in the suit was still there. She was on her phone, pacing near the fish tank, and she sounded furious. "I don't care what Marcus says. Those files were locked in my office. No, I'm not paranoid. Someone is setting me up." She caught me staring and lowered her voice. "I have to go. We'll discuss this Monday." She hung up and looked at me. Up close, I could see the exhaustion around her eyes. She looked like I felt, running on fumes and sheer stubbornness. "Is your dog okay?" she asked. "Sprained paw. Yours?" "Kidney stones. They're keeping him overnight." She glanced at Julian, who was half asleep against my shoulder. "Did you get your son to a doctor?" "Heading there now." She nodded, then hesitated. "I don't usually do this, but do you have a card? For your business?" I blinked. "You want to hire me?" "I need someone reliable. My regular dog walker just quit, and I travel frequently for work. If you're good enough to bring a sick child and still show up for an appointment on time, you're probably good enough for my schedule." I pulled out one of the cheap business cards I'd printed at FedEx. Charles Miller. Professional pet care. My phone number was handwritten on the bottom because I couldn't afford to reprint them every time I changed carriers. She took it without comment. "I'll call you next week." "Can I ask your name?" "Angela Hartwell." I recognized it immediately. Anyone who watched the news in LA knew that name. She was the lawyer who'd won that massive corporate fraud case last year. The kind of person who could afford to pay me what I actually needed. "Thank you," I said. "For earlier, with the vet tech." "You were in the right. She was following a rule that didn't make sense." Angela picked up her purse. Leather, expensive, probably cost more than my car. "Take care of your son, Mr. Miller." She walked out before I could respond. Julian stirred against my shoulder. "Daddy, I don't feel good." "I know, buddy. Let's get you fixed up." I didn't think about Angela Hartwell again until 3 days later, when she called and offered me a contract that would change everything. The house was in Brentwood, which meant I spent 40 minutes in traffic just to get there. Angela had texted me the gate code and instructions. Back door. Key under the mat. Jasper is a golden retriever, 8 years old, needs 2 walks daily and medication at noon. The medication part made me pause. I'd been out of pharmacy work for 2 years, ever since Sarah died, and I couldn't handle the hospital shifts anymore. But some things you don't forget. The house was massive, not mansion level, but the kind of place that said I win cases for a living. The backyard had a pool and a view of the hills. Jasper was waiting by the door, tail wagging, completely trusting. I let him sniff me, checked his tags, and found the medication bottle on the kitchen counter. Tramadol, 50 milligrams, twice daily. Hip dysplasia, probably. I checked the dosage against his weight, made a note of the prescribing vet, and tucked the bottle back exactly where I'd found it. The walk was easy. Jasper was well-trained, didn't pull, and seemed happy just to be outside. We did the loop Angela had mapped out. Down to the park, around the hiking trail, back home. I refilled his water, made sure the gate was locked, and left. Professional. Clean. Exactly what she was paying for. When I got home, Julian was with my neighbor Mrs. Chen watching cartoons. She didn't charge me for babysitting, but I always slipped her $20 anyway. It wasn't enough, but it was what I had. "He ate lunch," Mrs. Chen said in her thick Cantonese accent. "No more fever. You good boy, Julian." Julian ran to me, holding up a drawing. "I made you a dinosaur." It looked more like a blob with legs, but I hung it on the fridge anyway. "That's amazing, buddy." That night, after Julian fell asleep, I sat at the kitchen table and did the math. Angela's contract was $1,200 a month for daily walks and pet sitting when she traveled. Add that to my other clients, and I might actually make rent without overdrafting. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Mr. Miller, this is Angela Hartwell. Jasper's medication log shows you documented the time and dosage. That's more thorough than I expected. Thank you." I stared at the screen. Most clients didn't even notice that kind of detail. No problem. I used to work in a hospital pharmacy. Old habits. 3 dots appeared, then disappeared, then appeared again. Interesting. If you're ever looking for additional work, I might have a research project that requires someone with pharmaceutical knowledge. We can discuss next week. I didn't know what that meant, but I wasn't going to turn down extra money. I'm available. Good. I'll be in touch. I set the phone down and looked at the drawing on the fridge. Julian's dinosaur. Sarah's handwriting on the grocery list I still couldn't bring myself to throw away. For the first time in 2 years, I felt like maybe I wasn't drowning. I just didn't know I was about to get pulled under anyway. Buan. Angela called me on a Thursday, and I could hear the stress in her voice before she even finished saying hello. Mr. Miller, I need to move our meeting up. Can you come to my office tomorrow at 2? I glanced at my schedule. I had 3 dog walks in the morning, but I could shuffle things. Yeah, I can do that. Good. Bring any documentation you have of your pharmacy credentials, certifications, employment records, anything. That was weird. Is this still about Jasper? No. This is about a case I'm working on. I'll explain tomorrow. She hung up before I could ask follow-up questions. The next day, I dropped Julian off at preschool, subsidized, thank God, and drove downtown. Angela's law firm occupied 4 floors of a glass tower that probably cost more per month than I'd make in a year. The lobby had marble floors, and a receptionist who looked at my jeans and hoodie like I'd tracked mud inside. I'm here to see Angela Hartwell, I said. She checked her computer. Name? Charles Miller. 15th floor. She's expecting you. The elevator was glass, too, and I watched the city shrink below me as I rode up. When the doors opened, Angela was waiting. She looked different than she had at the vet clinic. Sharper, more in control, but there was something tight around her eyes, like she hadn't slept. Thank you for coming, she said, shaking my hand. Her grip was firm. Follow me. We walked through a maze of offices, lawyers in expensive suits, paralegals carrying stacks of files, everything moving at twice the speed of normal life. Angela's office was in the corner, with floor-to-ceiling windows and a view that made my stomach drop. She closed the door and gestured to a chair. I'm going to be direct, Mr. Miller, because I don't have time for anything else. I'm being accused of stealing controlled substances from a client's pharmaceutical company. The accusation is false, but the evidence is convincing. I sat down slowly. What kind of substances? Opioids. Fentanyl patches, specifically. They went missing from a shipment I was reviewing as part of a litigation case. Security footage shows me in the warehouse, and my keycard was used to access the storage area. But I didn't take anything. Someone's framing you. Yes, and if I can't prove it, I'm facing criminal charges, disbarment, prison. And she sat down across from me, and for the first time, I saw fear. I need someone who understands pharmaceutical logistics, chain of custody, how these things are tracked and stored. I need you to review the case files and tell me what I'm missing. I'm not a lawyer. I know, but you're a pharmacy technician. You know how drugs move through systems. You know what the logs should look like. And right now, you're the only person I can trust. That stopped me. Why me? Because you're not part of this world. You have no reason to betray me, and you noticed a medication discrepancy on Jasper's bottle that even I missed. You're careful. I need careful. I looked at the files stacked on her desk. Hundreds of pages. This wasn't a side job. This was a lifeline she was throwing me. And I didn't know if I was strong enough to catch it. What's the pay? $5,000. Half up front, half when we close the case. I did the math. That was 4 months of rent. Julian's preschool for the rest of the year. A buffer. When do we start? Angela exhaled, and I realized she'd been holding her breath. Now! The files were a disaster. Angela spread them across the conference room table. Shipping manifests, security logs, warehouse inventories, email chains. I pulled out my phone and started taking notes, falling back into the old rhythm. Check the DEA tracking numbers. Match them to the invoices. Verify the counts. Here, I said, tapping a page. This shipment shows 200 fentanyl patches logged in, but the destruction record only accounts for 198. That's before you ever accessed the warehouse. Angela leaned over my shoulder. She smelled like coffee and expensive perfume. So the drugs were already missing. Or the count was wrong from the start. Either way, it's not on you. I flipped to the next page. Who had access to the warehouse before you? 3 people. Warehouse manager, company CFO, and the lead investigator from the state board. The investigator's name? Marcus Chen. I looked up. Your colleague? Former colleague. He left the firm 6 months ago to work for the state. We didn't part on good terms. She sat down, rubbing her temples. He's the one who filed the complaint against me. That was a problem. A big one. If he had access to the warehouse and the security system, he could have planted evidence. Changed the logs. I pulled out my old pharmacy technician manual from my bag. I'd brought it on instinct, and flipped to the section on controlled substance tracking. But he'd need help. Someone inside the company. The CFO, Angela said quietly. He's being investigated for embezzlement. If Marcus promised to make that case go away in exchange for framing me, you're the scapegoat. I tapped the manual. We need to prove the drugs were missing before you showed up. That means finding the original intake logs, before they were altered. Angela looked at me like I'd just solved a puzzle she'd been staring at for weeks. How do you know they were altered? Because the timestamps don't match. Look. I pointed to 2 different entries. This one says the shipment was logged at 9 a.m., but the signature is dated 9:15. That's not how intake works. You log, you sign, you seal, same time. So someone went back and changed the entries. Yeah. And if we can find the original files, we can prove I was set up. Angela stood, suddenly energized. The company keeps backup servers. I can subpoena them. How long will that take? A week, maybe 2, but I have an arraignment in 7 days. If I can't show reasonable doubt by then, they'll move forward with charges. She looked at me, and I saw desperation. I need more time. I thought about Julian, about the drawing on my fridge, about Sarah, who'd spent her last moments making me promise to take care of our son. Then we buy you time, I said. What's the weakest part of their case? The security footage. It shows me entering the warehouse, but it's grainy. No clear shot of my face. Then we get an expert to testify that the footage could be anyone. We create doubt. I pulled out my phone and started Googling forensic video analysts in LA. It won't win the case, but it'll slow them down. Angela smiled. Really smiled. For the first time since I'd met her. You're good at this. I'm good at not giving up. She held my gaze for a second too long, and I felt something shift. Not attraction. Not exactly. More like recognition. She saw the same exhaustion in me that I saw in her. Let's get to work, she said. We worked through the night. Angela ordered food. Thai, expensive, way better than anything I usually ate, and we spread out across her office. I went through every page of the pharmaceutical logs while she drafted motions and called in favors from colleagues. Around midnight, my phone rang. Mrs. Chen. Julian crying, she said. Want Daddy. Guilt hit me like a fist. I'm on my way. Angela looked up. Is everything okay? I have to go. My son. Go, we can pick this up tomorrow. I grabbed my jacket, but she stopped me. Charles, thank you. I mean it. I nodded and left. When I got home, Julian was sitting on Mrs. Chen's couch, clutching his stuffed dinosaur. His face was red and puffy. "Hey, buddy," I said, scooping him up. "I'm sorry, I'm here now." "You were gone forever," he whispered. "I know. I'm sorry." Mrs. Chen handed me his overnight bag. "He good boy. Just miss you." I carried Julian home, got him into bed, and lay down next to him until he fell asleep. His small hand curled around my thumb, and I felt the weight of every choice I'd made since Sarah died. I was doing this for him. The money, the case, all of it. But what good was financial stability if I wasn't there? My phone buzzed. A text from Angela. "I found something. The CFO's assistant resigned 2 days after the drugs went missing. I'm tracking her down tomorrow. Get some rest." I set the phone down and closed my eyes. I didn't know it yet, but we were running out of time. The next morning, I took Julian to the park. We needed normal, just an hour of swings and sandbox, and pretending the world wasn't falling apart. He was building a castle when my phone rang. Angela. "Charles, we have a problem. The arraignment got moved up. It's tomorrow." I stood, walking away from the playground so Julian wouldn't hear. "What? Why?" "Marcus pushed for an expedited hearing. He's claiming I'm a flight risk." Her voice was tight. "I need those backup server files, and I need them now." "Can you get a court order?" "Not in time. But I have another idea. The company's IT director owes me a favor. If I can convince him to pull the files voluntarily, do it. What do you need from me?" "Meet me at the warehouse tonight, 8 p.m. I need someone who understands the technical side in case the IT guy asks questions." "I'll be there." I hung up and looked at Julian. He was smashing his castle with a toy truck, laughing. I didn't want to leave him again, but I didn't have a choice. The warehouse was in Vernon, surrounded by chain-link fences and security lights. Angela was waiting in the parking lot, looking out of place in her suit. "The IT director is inside," she said. "His name is David. He's nervous, so let me do the talking." We walked in together. David was a thin guy in his 30s, wearing a company polo and the expression of someone who regretted every life choice that led him here. "Ms. Hartwell," he said, not making eye contact. "I can give you 30 minutes. After that, I have to log this access." "That's fine. We just need the original intake logs from March 15th. David led us to a back office filled with servers and blinking lights. He typed for a few minutes, then frowned. "That's weird." "What?" Angela asked. "The backup files for that date are corrupted, like completely unreadable." I stepped forward. "Corrupted how? Hardware failure or manual deletion?" David looked at me. "Who are you?" "Consultant," Angela said smoothly. "Answer the question." "Manual. Someone overwrote the sector." He pulled up a screen full of code. "See this? That's a deliberate wipe. Whoever did it knew what they were doing." Angela's face went pale. "Can you recover anything?" "Maybe, but it'll take days, and I'd need authorization from—" The lights went out. Emergency backups kicked in, bathing everything in red. David swore. "That's not normal." "Is someone else here?" I asked. "No. The building's supposed to be empty." Angela pulled out her phone. No signal. "We need to leave. Now." We moved toward the exit, but the door was locked. David tried his keycard. Nothing. "Someone's overriding the system," he said, panicking. I looked around. The warehouse was huge, rows of shelves, forklifts, shipping containers, plenty of places to hide. "Is there another exit?" I asked. "Loading dock, back of the building." "Then we go. Now." We ran. We made it halfway across the warehouse when I heard footsteps. Heavy. Deliberate. "Keep moving," I whispered to Angela. David was breathing hard, stumbling. Angela grabbed his arm and pulled him forward. The footsteps got closer. I grabbed a metal pipe from a shelf, not a weapon, just a tool, and positioned myself between Angela and whoever was following us. A figure emerged from the shadows. Tall, broad-shouldered, wearing a security uniform. "Miss Hartwell," he said calmly, "you're trespassing." "I have authorization from the IT director," Angela said, her voice steady. "Not anymore. Mr. Chen filed a restraining order this afternoon. You're not allowed within 500 feet of company property." I stepped forward. "Then we'll leave. No problem." The guard smiled. "Too late for that. Police are already on their way." Angela's face went white. If the cops showed up and found her here, Marcus would use it as proof she was tampering with evidence. The case would be over. I looked at David. "Is there a fire exit?" He nodded, pointing. "North corner, but it's alarmed." "Doesn't matter. Move." We ran again. The guard shouted something, but I didn't stop. We hit the fire exit at full speed, and the alarm screamed. Outside, Angela's car was in the lot. We piled in, and she gunned it. We were 2 blocks away when I saw the police lights behind us. Angela didn't stop. She drove fast but controlled, weaving through side streets until we lost the sirens. Finally, she pulled into an empty parking garage and killed the engine. "That was insane," David said from the back seat. "You didn't have to run," Angela said to him. "This is my mess. If I stayed, they'd know I helped you. I'm already screwed." He pulled out a flash drive. "But I copied what I could before the system went down. It's not much, but it's something." Angela took the drive like it was made of gold. "Thank you." David got out and disappeared into the night. I looked at Angela. She was shaking. "Hey," I said quietly. "You're okay." "I'm not. Marcus has a restraining order. He's escalating. If I can't prove my innocence tomorrow, then we will. Tonight." I pointed to the flash drive. "Let's see what's on there." We drove to her house in silence. Angela's kitchen was bigger than my entire apartment. She made coffee, real coffee, not the instant stuff I survived on. And we sat at the island with her laptop. The flash drive had fragments, pieces of the original logs, partial timestamps, incomplete shipping records. But it was enough. "Look," I said, pointing at the screen. "This entry shows the fentanyl patches were signed for by someone with the initials MC. That's Marcus." "He had legitimate access as the investigator," Angela said. "That doesn't prove anything." "But this does." I pulled up a second file. The destruction record he filed says the drugs were destroyed on March 20th. But this log shows they were still in inventory on March 22nd, 2 days later. Angela leaned closer. So he lied about when they were destroyed. Which means he had access to them after the official record says they were gone. That's your reasonable doubt. She grabbed my hand. Not romantic, just desperate, grateful, human. You did it. You actually did it. I felt the warmth of her palm against mine and pulled away gently. "We still have to present this tomorrow. You need a tech expert to authenticate the files." "I know someone. I'll call him first thing." She looked at me, and her eyes were wet. "Charles, I don't know how to thank you." "Pay me, that's enough." She laughed, short, exhausted, real. "You're not like anyone I've ever worked with." "Yeah, well, I'm not a lawyer." "No, you're better." The moment hung there, fragile. Then her phone rang. She answered, and I watched her face change. "What? When?" She hung up and looked at me. "Julian's preschool just called Mrs. Chen. He's running a fever again." Guilt crushed me. I'd been so focused on Angela's case that I'd ignored my own kid. "I have to go," I said, standing. "Of course, go. I'll handle the rest." I grabbed my jacket and headed for the door, but she stopped me. "Charles, you're a good father. Don't forget that." I nodded and left. When I picked up Julian from Mrs. Chen, he was crying again. Burning up. I took him to urgent care, and they said it was just a virus, rest, and fluids. But sitting in that waiting room, holding my son while he slept against my chest, I realized something. I'd been running on empty for 2 years, doing everything alone. And for the first time, someone had seen me, really seen me, and hadn't walked away. Angela Hartwell didn't need me to save her. She was already saving herself. But maybe, just maybe, we could save each other. The arraignment was in a windowless courtroom that smelled like old wood and desperation. I sat in the back, Julian on my lap, watching Angela stand in front of the judge. She was calm, confident, unbreakable. Marcus Chen sat on the prosecution side, his face smug. Angela's lawyer presented the flash drive files, authenticated by the tech expert. The judge reviewed them, frowning. "Ms. Hartwell, these logs suggest the controlled substances were mishandled by the investigating officer, not you." "That's correct, Your Honor. I'm requesting the charges be dismissed pending a full investigation into Mr. Chen's conduct." Marcus stood. "Your Honor, these files are incomplete. They prove nothing." "They prove reasonable doubt," the judge said, "which is enough. Ms. Hartwell, I'm dismissing the charges without prejudice. Mr. Chen, you're being referred to the State Ethics Board. We're adjourned." The gavel came down. Angela didn't celebrate. She just turned, found me in the crowd, and smiled. Outside the courthouse, Angela pulled me aside. "I owe you everything," she said. "You owe me $2,500. That was the deal." She handed me an envelope. "There's $5,000 in there. You earned it." I stared at the money. It was more than I'd made in 3 months. "Angela, take it, please. And if you ever want to go back to pharmacy work, I know people. I can make calls." I thought about it. Going back to the hospital. Regular hours. Real pay. But I looked at Julian, who was holding my hand and yawning. "I'm good where I am," I said. "But thank you." She nodded. "Then stay in touch. Jasper's going to need his walks." "I can do that." We stood there for a moment, 2 people who'd survived something impossible. Then she did something I didn't expect. She hugged me. Not a professional handshake. A real hug. The kind that said, "I see you." When she pulled back, she was smiling. "Take care of that boy, Charles." "I will." And I walked away. Julian's hand in mine. The envelope in my pocket. For the first time in 2 years, I felt like I could breathe. 3 weeks later, Angela called and asked if I wanted to grab coffee. We met at a place in Santa Monica near the beach. Julian played in the sand while we talked. "How's work?" I asked. "Busy. I took a leave of absence. Needed time to figure out what I actually want." She looked at the ocean. "I've spent 20 years building a career, and I don't have a single person I'd call if I was in trouble. Except you." I didn't know what to say to that. "I'm not asking for anything," she added quickly. "I just wanted you to know." Julian ran up, holding a shell. "Daddy, look!" "That's awesome, buddy." Angela smiled at him. "He's lucky to have you." "I'm lucky to have him." We sat in silence, watching the waves. It wasn't romantic. It wasn't a fairy tale. It was just 2 people who'd been through hell and decided they didn't have to go through it alone. 6 months later, Angela offered me a job. Not as a dog walker, as a consultant for her firm, reviewing pharmaceutical cases, real pay, benefits, stability. I said yes. Julian started kindergarten. I moved us into a better apartment. I even bought a new car. Nothing fancy, but it didn't break down every other week. And Angela? She became a friend. The kind who showed up when I needed help, who remembered Julian's birthday, who didn't expect me to be anything other than who I was. We never dated. The age gap, the history, the complicated mess of everything, it didn't make sense. But we built something better than romance. We built trust. Looking back, I realize the best kind of love isn't about passion or drama. It's about showing up. It's about seeing someone at their worst and choosing to stay anyway. Angela taught me that I didn't have to do everything alone, that asking for help wasn't weakness, it was survival. And I hope I taught her that success doesn't mean anything if you're alone at the top. Real love is partnership. It's someone who sees your value when you've forgotten it yourself. If you're going through something hard right now, find your person. The one who doesn't try to fix you, but stands beside you while you fix yourself. That's what changed my life. Not money, not a job, just one person who believed I was worth saving. Please like and subscribe so we can share more stories like this.